And the hard thing about that whole scenario, it wasn't just that like we needed money and so she needed to go to work. My dad framed it like my mom wouldn't lose weight and her punishment was to go to work at Arby's.
My name is Andrea Belita. I grew up in a bunkhouse we made in Idaho. No electricity, no separated rooms, no privacy. We were preppers, hoarder style. An herbalist mother and a religiously extreme and dominating father. Abuse was prevalent. Songwriting and journaling are how I got through life. I bet you've been through some pretty gnarly stuff as well. Let's get reading.
February 5th, 1994, Saturday. We went to Conan's, my cousin's baptism, and it was really exciting. For him and me, it was exciting. And then we went to Uncle Larry's house. It was neat, and there were a lot of people at Uncle Larry's house. And we watched a movie called Dusty. It was a sad but happy but funny movie, and before we left, we played a little of the piano. I remember going to my Uncle Larry's house and always thinking that it was a pretty nice house, because our house really wasn't, and it was often just very cluttered and full of junk. We did live with my grandma during this time, in my 4th grade year, and my grandma's house was really nice, and they had like new carpet, and they lived in town on the nice side of town, and it was a totally different experience living with my grandparents. It was great.
But I always enjoyed visiting my aunt and uncle.
And he had 7 daughters, and they were all very nice to me. So that was also one reason I really liked going to his house. And all of his daughters were really cool, and they dressed really nice, and it was something that, they had all the latest fashion, and
they were all super pretty and just really big, lovely, warm smiles.
Sunday, February 6th, 1994. Today we went to state conference. It wasn't as long as church, but because we didn't have class, I was tired, uncomfortable, and this woman at church went up and talked. And her husband went on a mission, and she said that it felt like they were sitting on the celestial kingdom doorstep. So in Mormonism, celestial kingdom is like there are tiers of heaven. And the celestial kingdom is the top tier of heaven. So it's like the place that if you keep all the commandments and you endure to the end and you get through your struggles with an optimistic attitude, then you will, and you don't leave the church, then you'll land in the celestial kingdom. That's the promise. And the celestial kingdom is where families can be together forever. And it's this whole thing. So basically what she's saying from that experience is that she had a really good experience on a mission. So, but I think some people actually do say it, and they think that they're being, like, their metaphor is realistic, and you know what, maybe to her it felt like, if this is what heaven is, then this is heaven. So anyway, Sunday, February 13th, 1994. Today we got up and went to church, and today is Bishop Hyder's son's farewell. And in primary, we learned that everyone is different than everyone. Then we came home at 12:15 as usual. And when Dad came home, and then we had FHE, which means family home evening. First we had a song, then Mom said a prayer, then my sister said a scripture, then my brother gave the lesson, and my other brother played the recorder and played a game called charades. Then I had treats, and my other brother and I made little cups, and it had little candy hearts and cookies that we made today. And then we had another prayer, which was given by Grandma. Then we went to bed. I always loved family home evenings because it was a time when my family got together and we did something together. Most of the time, things were segregated. Like, the boys would go out and help my dad fix a car, and the girls would help my mom make dinner. And so those times when we would be together as a family, those were times that I really cherished. And family home evening was this, church encouraged night where we were supposed to get together with our families and have a prayer and have a lesson and have a song and have a treat, like make it a fun time together. But it was originally started as a way to like teach the church principles in the home and to like have a good time with the family. So you choose like an activity, you do something together as a family. And I loved that. I begged my parents all the time to have family home evening because I liked being together with my entire family and bonding with everybody. Thursday, February 17th, 1994. Today I got up and got dressed, came upstairs because in my grandma's house, she had a main floor and a downstairs. And the kids stayed downstairs. Came upstairs, cleaned a little, did my morning things, and went to school. Now, I have distinct memories of me being in my grandma's bathroom in the mornings doing my hair because 4th grade was really when I started doing my hair. My mom used to do my hair when I was little and she would accidentally cut my bangs too short. Or, she did put my hair in curlers, which I loved. Those overnight curlers, those pink ones. And I loved when my hair was super curly like that. But as I got older, I didn't really like how my mom did my hair, so I started really practicing to do my own hair. I had her teach me how to do a French braid, so I would do my Barbie's hair, French braid it, and I always practiced different hairstyles on my Barbies. And then eventually in 4th grade, I just decided I'm going to do my own hair, and I didn't want her to do my hair anymore. And I remember being in my grandma's hallway bathroom upstairs and slicking my hair back and trying to make it perfect. And I always envied the girls whose hair was perfect every day at school. And I had a friend, Leah, whose hair was perfect every day. And so, yeah, I was excited to start doing my hair. Then after school, Shauna, my best friend's sister, asked me if I wanted to have a ride home. So my brother and I got a ride home and we went over to our neighbor's house, played Nintendo for a while, and came home and ate and went to bed. Friday, February 18th, 1994. Today at 7:30 was Daddy-Daughter Day. Boy, was it fun. We played the daddy-daughter game, and it was where you had to tell about your daddies and daughters. First, we had an opening prayer. So this was a church activity. Then we had dessert, and it was good. Dad had a banana split, and I had an ice cream sundae. Then we had a closing prayer and came home. Oh, also a girl named Allison. Some other girls named Amber and Amy played piano. Boy, were they the ultimate. Yeah, I remember those daddy-daughter experiences, and they were so special to me. So special. I loved doing things with just my dad, which was rare. But I have fond memories of that. Friday, February 25th, 1994. Today, we went to a scout banquet at the 10th Ward and had a dinner. And Joseph, my brother, got a lot of badges, and I had to go to the bathroom 3 times. Saturday, February 26, 1994. Today, the children mom babysits came to our house, and we watched them. Their names are Brock, the boy, Adria, the girl. I had so much fun, and I jumped on the trampoline for about 45 minutes altogether. I loved those times when my mom babysat kids because I loved kids. And so I felt like I got to be the babysitter too because I would just play with them. I was the youngest of my family, and so my older siblings didn't always want to play with me. And I always wanted little brothers and sisters. I remember begging my mom, "Can we please have a little brother or little sister?" And she would just say no. Yeah, I was the last one. So I have to tell about my birth story sometime. because, it's a good one. It's a good one. I'll tell that sometime. Tuesday, March 8th. Today at school, we had another substitute, and her name is Mrs. Stanger. Yesterday, we had a substitute, and her name is Mrs. Mayland. They are nice. And on Friday, March 4th, I went to a slumber party. Aaron Novak was the person that invited me. Me, Stephanie Rochelle, Melissa, Amber, Joanna, and Kati were invited. For dinner at the slumber party, we had pizza and dessert. We had cake and ice cream. Okay, so it's really cute because in my journal here, I am like pronouncing dessert like D-E and then that dot Z-E-R-T because I always forgot how to spell dessert, so I always spelled it desert. And we watched Troop Beverly Hills and Natia. Oh, I loved that show, Nadia, about the gymnastics, the girl in gymnastics. And today we had Aaron's birthday party, and we each had 5 Jolly Ranchers, and I jumped on the trampoline. Sunday, March 13th. Today we went to church at 9 a.m., and then in class we talked about Joseph Smith. Then at 4 o'clock, I went to Sister Aslet's house, my church teacher, and I got an ice cream sandwich. Then at 5:30, the missionaries came and had dinner with us. I had a great time. Monday, March 14th. Today was a great day. First was computer class. Then we had first recess. Then we had math. Then we had lunch. Then the best part of the day was the madrigals came and sang. They're a singing group, and they sing really good, and it was the best day on the whole school days. Then we came home, and I jumped on the trampoline. Oh, and I studied my counties for a test. Okay, so the madrigals were a high school choir who were super good, and they came and sang for our elementary school, and I just loved that. That was like my favorite day of all days. I loved singing, and so that was just when I saw people singing confidently and having fun doing it, it was just the best for me. That counties test, I wonder if I revisit that at any point, because I ended up getting a 100% on that test, and I was like the only person who did, and I was the first person in my class who finished the test. So proud of myself. I still have the county song memorized, by the way. I'm tempted to ask if you want to hear it. Okay. Wednesday, March 16th, 1994. Today at school, we had a county test, and there are 44 of them, and I didn't miss one. Not one. I'm learning a new trick on the bars. It's called the dead man. It's real fun. Okay, I wonder if I tell more about the dead man later, because I ended up having an accident with the dead man. Okay, so proud of myself for that test. That's like one of my elementary achievements that I still look back on and I'm so proud of, because I worked so hard on making sure that I knew all of the counties in Idaho. Friday, March 18th. Today in the morning, we had art. It was fun. We used oil pastels to draw a picture, and I drew a picture of our ranch at school. So when we were living in Twin Falls, as I said before, we had a 10-acre property in Buell. We called it the ranch. And that's where we had our cows. We had a couple horses. And then eventually we would get more animals once we moved there. But that's the place that would eventually be where we moved, where we were building a house and then didn't end up having electricity. Sunday, March 20th, I got up and got dressed and did my hair, and then we went to church. Mom couldn't go to church with us because she got a new job at Arby's. It's a restaurant. And Dad couldn't come to church because he works up in Sun Valley. In church, I learned about prayer and fasting, and you have to stop and think and decide and do the right thing. And I was in the choir at church and sang a beautiful song. Then we came home and I read my scriptures. Then we ate lunch, and then I played a few melodies on the piano. Then I wrote in my journal. So my mom went to work at Arby's, and the hard thing about that whole scenario, it wasn't just that like we needed money and so she needed to go to work. My dad framed it like my mom wouldn't lose weight, and her punishment was to go to work at Arby's. So that was hard because my mom's weight was always an issue for my dad, despite how thin my mom was, despite how healthy my mom was, despite how beautiful my mom was. I thought she was beautiful. And it was never enough for my dad. So when I would hear my parents talking, it was never framed that like, we just need the money. It was always that my mom wouldn't lose the weight. And so she's going to have to go work at Arby's. And I don't remember the fact that they, neither one of them went to church with us sometimes. And we went with my grandparents. I think probably because we had my grandparents, they took us. And my mom didn't want to go work at Arby's. I was 10, and she loved being a stay-at-home mom. She loved babysitting. She did that for extra money. I think part of the hard part was that my dad would spend it on these vehicles that I think at the time maybe we needed them, but then he wouldn't fix them. He would just get another vehicle, and then anyway, that would turn into eventually a junkyard. But my grandparents, I loved my grandparents. They were my dad's parents, and they were just, my grandmother was hilarious. My grandfather was, loving and kind. Both of them were just fantastic and very lovely people. My grandma, she would make Jell-O, she'd have, the kids and grandkids and, everybody would come over to their house for Sunday dinner. And it really was just this really fun experience. Well, for the most part. Later I would find out that there was actually a lot of abuse going on. And that will come up in the story over time. I'll find the right place to talk about that. But my grandma and grandpa, though, were lovely. But as a child, I just wasn't aware of so many of the things that were going on.
I guess the one thing that did stand out to me, and I loved my grandpa, and this was probably the one thing I couldn't quite wrap my head around, was that when we'd go to church, it seemed like he was always going to hug and kind of, like he was very, very lovey to the women in the ward. He'd go and get really close to these women and get right up to them and just give them a hug and, kind of, just be extra kind of affectionate, if you will. And that always made me feel uncomfortable.
So but my grandpa, a few memories that I have, and it wasn't necessarily abuse from my grandparents. It wasn't abuse from them. It was abuse that was happening at their house.
Amongst cousins. And what's crazy is that a lot of them didn't know what was happening to the other until much later in life.
So yeah, I'll talk about that at some point, just not right now. This particular, I want to talk about my grandfather. Every time, before we moved in, and even after we moved in, my grandpa always made sure there was popcorn in what we call the fruit room downstairs, which is like a cold room for all the, all the fruits and vegetables that they canned, and, they'd have a few extra things, like a little extra food storage in case something bad happened in the world they needed, or in case someone, a loss of income or whatever. Just this room that had extra food and supplies in it. And he always made sure there was fresh popcorn in there with these two or three massive stainless steel pans. And we would use, as kids, we'd use those, cottage cheese containers as our containers for popcorn. And it was just so perfect. We'd First thing we do, we'd run downstairs. We get to my grandparents' house before we moved in. Get to my grandparents, and after we moved out, this is what happened. We'd get to my grandparents' house, run downstairs, say hello, give them a hug, run downstairs, get a cottage cheese container full of popcorn and sit down and watch TV. All right, Monday, March 21st. This morning I woke up at 6:45 and I got up and got dressed and did my hair and ate breakfast and went to school. We got on the bus and went to Boise, and it took about 3 hours to get there. First, we went to the Idaho Historical Museum, and I saw a two-headed calf, and I saw some guns and some dolls and games and old-fashioned cars. And I saw a room in the old-fashioned house and a part of an old-fashioned bar. Then we went to the park and ate lunch and played on the toys. Since we had more time, we went to the zoo. We saw all kinds of animals and reptiles. I saw camels, bears, deer, a badger, zebras, ducks, geese, and some moose. It was fun because I'd never been in a zoo before. Then we went to the Capitol, and it's very high. I went real to Governor Cecil Anderson's office, and I saw a statue and a golden statue. Then we came home. It was real fun. So that's the classic fourth grade state capital trip. Today we didn't go to church. We stayed home and watched conference. So twice a year in the Mormon religion, nobody goes to church. Everybody just stays home and watches the prophet and the apostles and the other leaders of the church give conferences give talks for 2 days. It's like 4 hours on Saturday, broken up, and then 4 hours on Sunday, broken up, and then like one adult meeting in the evening. We had to change our clocks because of daylight savings time. Every Easter Sunday is daylight savings time. Conference, I learned or knew that parents shouldn't let their children fight or quarrel. All right. Yes, that was classic. That was always in our home. We're not supposed to let you guys fight or quarrel. But siblings. Okay. June 6th. Today I actually saw and heard Miss Idaho. Her real name is Rosanna Boyle. I even got her autograph. It is a windy day. I hung her autograph on Grandma and Grandpa's wall downstairs. She is so pretty. Oh, I remember that. I don't remember where I saw her. I don't remember where I saw her. Okay, this is my nephew. Oh, okay. So now I have a picture of my nephew as a baby, and I'm telling all about where he was born, what his name is. He's my oldest nephew. So anyway, his name is Eric, and I was so proud to be an aunt. They lived far away in Seattle, though, so I didn't get to see them much. And I was telling about my sister. Oh, she's 23 at the time. I can't believe I'm actually an aunt. That's what I said. December 29th, 1994. Yesterday, my best friend, Shauna, and me went ice skating in Sun Valley. We skated for 2.5 hours, and I only fell down twice. That's good for an ice skating starter. After that, we went to a restaurant called The Kitchen. We had to wait 30 minutes just to get our food because they forgot about us.
All right, you guys. So this best friend would continue to be a best friend for me my entire life. She and I still talk. We met when we were 10. We still visit each other. She's so good at sending gifts. She still sends me gifts. I send them to her always very late for her birthday. So I'm going to share the song that I wrote for her a few years ago. It's called Best Friends. Whenever I would go to my grandma's house, I would get to play with Shauna, and we would do all kinds of fun things like make up shows for the family, and they'd come out and watch us on the trampoline, and we'd pretend that we were princesses trapped in a castle on the trampoline, and we just had so much fun together, just endless fun. And she was in dance classes, and she would teach me all her dances, and we would listen to Amy Grant on her cute little, pink cassette player, and it was just so fun. Best friends never part at heart. Best friends never part at heart. I see you in my mind, that big, bright, glamour smile. Remember how we were princesses, trapped in a castle on the trampoline, getting boxes of pudding and invites to our shows. Those were the best days of summer. When we were 10, I go there again and smile. That long, deep, breathy smile. And thank God I'm fine, and you're fine. Through the 25 years since then, when we were 10, when we were 10. Now we've grown in families of our own, drawing from the steps along the way, wielding courage and passion to just let go, to be the best version of each other that we have known, learning to let go and fly that long, open, weightless flight. And thank God I'm fine, and you're fine. Through the nearly 40 years of life we've lived, and we've lived. Best friends never part at heart. Best friends never part at heart. I see you in my mind, that big, bright, glamour smile. That smile. In the next episode, I will share what it was like living in our 10-foot camper on our property during the winter time. And it was my first experience living without electricity. And that would basically be the beginning of the next 8 years for me. I would love to hear from you. In the show notes, there is a link where you can share your thoughts and experiences with the podcast, or if you can relate to something, let me know. If you have any questions for me, things that I'm not covering yet that aren't made clear, I would love to get to that. In next episode, I will also be explaining kind of the structure of my family and how many people are in my family and so on. So if you know anybody who you think would enjoy these podcast episodes, send it along. Write an awesome review if you're enjoying it. And if you're not, then there's like a gazillion other podcasts. I'm sure you can fill your time with one of those. And you know what? I hope you have an amazing day, because no matter what we go through, we can always make the next day better.